that you were in? You were in which wars?
I was in World War II and the Korean situation.
And your rank, what was your rank?
I was a buck sergeant in the U.S. Marine Corps.
And where did you serve?
I served, well, let me say, I went through basic training in Paris Island, Camp Lejeune, San Diego, and out to the South Pacific.
Now, were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted on 15th July 1946.
Where were you living at the time?
I was living in Wallingford, Connecticut.
Why did you decide to join the military?
Well, it's a little story. In the spring of 1942, I'd passed all the requirements for aviation cadet. I went to Westover Field in Massachusetts, be sworn in. However, they said it would be 3 days before we swear any group in. You can have a 3-day pass or you can stay here at the base. I took the 3-day pass, went home. The next day I went down to New Haven and joined the Marine Corps.
Now, was there another reason why you picked the branch that you joined?
No reason.
Now, do you recall your first days in service?
Well, it was a little warm in July in Paris Island, but we withstood the heat.
Besides the warmth, what else did it feel like to be in Paris Island?
Well, I'd had some military training beforehand. I was a drum major, drum and bugle corps in my teens.
So, did you want to tell me a little bit about your boot camp and training experiences?
Well, it's the usual training in the Marine Corps. I'd passed all the basic training for the recruit. I was in recruit platoon 306, and I made marksman with the rifle and a sharpshooter with the pistol.
Do you remember your instructors at all?
No, I don't.
No. How did you get through training?
How did I get my training?
How did you get through training?
Oh, fine. Yeah, and after boot camp, I went on 30-day leave, and then I joined the 11th Defense Battalion at Camp Lejeune in late September of '42. The battalion consisted of 4 155mm guns and supporting units. I joined the range section at the time, and early October '42 we boarded a troop train for San Diego, California. On December 2nd, 1942, we boarded a transport named J.V. Japera, which was a Dutch freighter made into a troop We took off for the South Pacific.
And that Dutch freighter that departed from California?
Right, in San Diego.
Now again, we're going to backtrack here. Which wars did you serve in again?
Pardon?
The wars you served in again?
Sir?
Yep, you served in...
Well, before we got to our destination, we stopped at New Caledonia for a couple days, and then on to Guadalcanal, which we arrived there early January of '43. We set up on a small island called Anguar, A-N-G-U-A-R, across the channel from Tulagi, which was well known at the time. We were there to catch the Tokyo Express, which never showed up, and forgot the dates. We went to Russell Island and set up our guns for the Tokyo Express again. We had a Jap air raid at the time, a few days after we arrived, and the Zeros flew over our position, so that night we moved our guns a mile down the beach and set up we cut down coconut trees and set them up, look like guns. The next day the commanding general came over and said, "You better move your guns." And we said, "Well, those are coconut trees you saw." He was surprised. Then I heard at the time there was a friend of mine, a colonel from the Company K National Guard from Wallingford, was on the island. His name was Bernard Lindauer. I got permission to call him. Within 15 minutes, he was over at my position, and we talked for a good hour about old times.
Can you tell me a little more? I'm sorry. Can you tell me a little more about what the Tokyo Express is, or what it was?
Well, it was the Japs coming down to Guadalcanal to try and get the Marines off the Guadalcanal island.
And they never came?
Well, they came, but we were never called on to fire. But they finally got rid of the Japs on the island, Guadalcanal.
Now, when you first arrived, do you remember what it was like? Was it hot? Was it rainy, muddy?
Well,
what were the conditions like?
No, the weather was pretty good. It was warm at times.
Can you tell me a little more about your job assignment when you were...
Well, I was in the range section, and that was using field glasses and telescopes to spot targets.
Did you see combat over there?
Not really. We were always stationed quite a distance behind the lines because of our big guns.
Were there many casualties in your unit?
No. From Russell Islands we went to the New Georgia Islands and set up there. Same situation. And on the way, after things settled down, we went back to Guadalcanal for R&R, work details and training, and we trained for field artillery. At first we were sea coast artillery, now we're switching to field artillery. And we landed D+3 on Peleliu, and we were on an LCT, and our big tractors to haul the guns. The skipper of the LCT said, well, unload. And the tractor driver went out on the ramp and looked and took his gear off the tractor, drove it off, and then went out of sight. So the skipper said, well, I guess I'd better move in closer. And he did. And we set up our field artillery about a mile south of the airfield, where you could see the planes take off, and at the other end of the field dropped their bombs. And D+10, we were called up to division headquarters to go up on forward observation position at noontime, and they said, well, you better wait till morning, because if we send up a 10-man team in the morning, we're lucky if 3 can walk back. So that night we tried to get a little sleep, and that morning we started up, and the Japs had pulled a banzai charge in this ravine where we had to go, and the only way we could get through was sidestep through the dead bodies of the Japs. There was about 100 of them. And we got up to our position and couldn't see anything because of the jungle. So we were there 3 days, and we were relieved and went back to our outfit. And there was a couple of our troops that went silver deer hunting and never came back. And they took one of our guns up the front lines to fire point blank into the caves. And a Lieutenant Hathaway was killed by a sniper. That's our only loss during the Peleliu campaign. And back to Guadalcanal for R&R, and then off to Okinawa, where we landed on April 1st, which was D-Day. And during our travels to where we were going to set up, there was an air raid, and there was a Navy Hellcat and a Marine Corsair flying over with a Jap Zero in between. And they took them out over the water and dumped them into the ocean. Then we got to our position, and we had a couple what do we call them, firing our guns at targets. And then when the Japs surrendered on August 15th, all the artillery on the island fired a total of 23,000 rounds of ammunition into the ocean to celebrate. And we left Okinawa around the middle of September of '45, stopped at Pearl Harbor on the way back to San Diego for 2 days, and then back to San Diego. While we were there, I was interviewed because I had until July of '46 to serve. They asked me if I wanted to be a drill instructor, and I said, well, if you want any recruits, don't make me a drill instructor. So how about occupational technician working at the discharge center? And I said, that's fine. So that's what I did until I was discharged on July 15th, 1946.
And then you want to talk about Korea now?
Well,
And did you have anything else, before we go on, is there anything else you want to talk about with WW2 before we go on to Korea?
not much. There was only one thing.
Feel free to talk about it.
Well, I was back in the States early spring of '46. I came down with malaria, and the doctors at the base didn't know anything about malaria. So I was suffering for 2 days, and finally I was able to tell them I had malaria. So they started treating me for it. I was in and out of consciousness. That's about it.
Backtracking a little bit, you said you had a new assignment for field air artillery.
Pardon?
You said you had a different assignment for field air artillery. Did you have to get trained for that, or that was something you were already trained for? This is back in when we were overseas for WW2.
I'm sorry.
You were assigned to set up field air artillery. Was that something that you were trained for back in the States, or is that something they trained for you over there?
We trained for it while we were on back at Guadalcanal on R&R.
How long was the training for that for?
No, I was out in the South Pacific just about 34 months. And the furthest back I got to the States was Guadalcanal. All right, after I was discharged, I played golf for 30 days. Then I went to work as a cost estimator at a silver company in Wallingford.
Now, how did you stay in touch with your family when you were overseas?
Well, I stayed in touch with email. What do they call it? It was a small letter. Oh, what did they call it?
V?
Oh, shit.
But you sent letters back home to your family members when you were overseas?
Yeah, I tried to let them know where I was. We had little code, and they knew practically where I was all the time. And then I met my wife in the spring of 1949. We were married in October of '49. And 2 weeks before our first wedding anniversary, I was called back in for the Korean situation.
And we're going to talk more about the Korean situation in a little bit, but more about back to the World War II experiences. Did you have plenty of supplies when you were over in overseas for WW2?
Oh yes, we had pretty good meals, and while we were on Peleliu, we were able to eat at the CB mess halls.
What was that like? Was the food good there? What was?
Oh yeah, it was good food.
What did they serve there?
Oh, I don't remember.
But it was good. That's good. Did you feel pressure or stress at all when you were overseas?
No.
No? Was there something special you did for good luck? Was there something special you did for good luck to not feel the stress or pressure?
No.
I mean, did you do a lot of reading?
Although I had a ring made from a Navy Wildcat fighter from one of the parts from the plane when what they call the cat's eye.
Yeah.
And just about a year ago I gave it to my niece's son who joined the Marine Corps, and he served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I don't know how you're going to put this all together.
Now, how did people entertain themselves? Over how did you entertain yourselves? You and your.
Well, let's see. One Christmas, 3 of us bought a bottle of whiskey for $40, and we sat on the cot and straight drink, swallow. Next fellow gets back and forth, and we had about a quarter of the bottle left. And we said, well, we better wait till morning to straighten ourselves out. And we sat there and said, the hell with that, we'll finish it now. So one of the fellows was much older than the two other, myself and the other fellow. He got up and walked out of the tent. I got up and I staggered out of the tent, and the third fellow got up and he fell flat on his face. And he was dead drunk.
Were there any entertainers over there?
No, we had a movie once in a while on Guadalcanal when we were for R&R between battles.
Besides that one event when you guys were drinking the whiskey, that was pretty funny. Do you recall any other humorous or unusual events that occurred?
Once in a while we were able to have some beer, but not much.
What were some of the pranks that you and others would pull? Was there any funny pranks that you and the others would pull on each other?
No, not too much. We were always pretty well busy most of the time.
Did you have any photographs?
I think I have one of me when we first got out there.
What did you think of officers or fellow soldiers?
Oh, they were very nice, the officers.
Did you keep a personal diary at all?
No, I haven't, because most of the outfit was from the South and Midwest. Most of the fellows were.
Now you served in another war? You served in the Korean War?
I was called back in October 6, 1950. I went to the Brooklyn Navy Yard and met a neighbor of mine who was called back in at the same time. And we were both put in charge of a group going to Camp Lejeune. And he was a real character. And he had everybody laugh over the whole trip. And well, I got to Camp Lejeune. I was specialty was occupational technician, and I was just hanging around doing nothing for 6 months, so I asked for a discharge because they didn't need me until probably early 1953, before the end of the war, or the Korean conflict, and that's it.
Now, did you serve overseas at all, or you just stayed at Camp Lejeune?
No, I stayed at Camp Lejeune.
Do you remember what it was like when you arrived there at Camp Lejeune? Was it a little different than Parris Island?
Well, not much different than when I was there in fall of 1942.
Could you talk a little more about your job assignment that you had?
Pardon?
Could you talk a little more about your job assignment for when you were at Camp Lejeune?
No.
Was there anything else you wanted to mention about the job assignment?
I don't think so.
Okay. Did you have any memorable experiences when you were at Camp Lejeune?
No.
And this is for your all your experiences. Were you awarded any medals or citations?
No. No. I wasn't a hero.
Now, keeping in touch with your family when you were in Camp Lejeune, you sent mail back and forth?
Just mail.
What, was the food pretty good at Camp Lejeune?
Pardon?
Was the food pretty good over there?
Yes, it was.
That's good. And you guys had plenty of supplies?
Right.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about after your service, when you were out. Do you recall the day of your last service?
Pardon?
The last day of your service?
That's in Quantico, Virginia, where I was discharged.
What was the date on that?
Pardon?
What was the date on that?
April 7th, 1951.
And you said you were in Quantico, Virginia?
Yeah.
What did you do in the days and the weeks afterward?
Just after I was discharged?
Correct.
And the weeks after, I played golf.
Did you work or go back to school?
I went to work.
Did you still work for as an appraiser?
No. I finally went to Pratt Whitney in North Haven and worked there for almost 30 years. And I retired at the age of 62.
Did you make any close friendships while you were in the service?
No.
Did you join any veterans organizations?
Yeah, I belong to VFW in Madison, post number 2096.
How long have you been a member at the VFW for?
Let's see. About 7 years.
Well, you said you had a career at Pratt & Whitney after the war?
Yeah. Well, I worked at Wallace, our Wallace and Son Silversmith before that. And then I went to Pratt & Whitney in North Haven.
Did you have any specific, what was your job title at Pratt & Whitney?
I was lead man in the materials department.
Did your military experiences influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
No.
Now, you said you're in the VFW. What kind of activities does your post or association have?
Well, they have a monthly dinner at the post, and they have a pancake breakfast once a month. We parade Memorial Day, 4th of July, and we have a service on December 7th.
Did you attend any reunions?
Just high school class reunion.
No military reunions?
No.
How did your service experiences affect your life?
Not much. I had military experience beforehand. In a drum and bugle corps. I was a drum major. And we did a lot of traveling around the state, around New England.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that we didn't really cover in the interview?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, that's it. I really appreciate your service. I thank you for your time.
Well, I thank you.
Anytime.